Yeah.
Great, thank you. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's dual immersion parent meeting. Tonight we'll be discussing a number of items, and before we get into the details of it, I want to introduce Nuria Lumberg, who is our translator for this meeting, and you'll have an opportunity to go ahead and access the interpretation channel at the bottom of the screen. So I'll turn it over to Nuria, who will talk about the interpretation channel, and then how we'll ask questions in the chat. Nuria?
Buenas noches a todos, yo soy Nuria Lundberg y voy a ser su intérprete del idioma español esta noche. El doctor Knapik dice que esta es una reunión en donde vamos a cubrir muchos temas respecto al programa de inmersión dual. Entonces se van a cubrir muchas cosas, como, bueno, les reitero. Y la manera de ingresar al canal de español es, ustedes van a ver un mundo color gris en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Entonces presiónenlo y pues ahí nos vemos. Y asimismo, si ustedes tienen preguntas, a favor de ponerlas en el chat y a medida que va avanzando la presentación van a ir contestándolas lo más rápido posible. En caso de que su pregunta no se responda, van a juntar o van a hacer un conglomerado de todas las preguntas y las van a ir respondiendo ya sea que las publiquen en la página o bueno, no sé qué metodología, pero ahí tienen, al final de la presentación van a saber a quién contactar si tienen preguntas más específicas. Y bueno, asimismo, ¿qué más les puedo decir antes de que se me olvide? Bueno, tenemos muchos presentadores esta noche, entonces en las diapositivas, si ustedes las quieren bajar de la página de internet, están en español, entonces ahí van a poder ver quiénes son nuestros panelistas y bueno, espero que les guste mi interpretación esta noche y nos vemos en el canal. Una cosita más, yo ya no voy a tener, ¿cómo se llama? Conexión con el exterior, entonces todo es a través del chat. Ahí escriben y pues a ver cómo le hacemos para comunicarnos, pero yo voy a estar pendiente. Gracias. Back to you,
Thank you,
Peter.
Nuria. So I'm going to go ahead and start the interpretation channel. And it should be available now. Nuria is putting a thumbs up, so it's working. Thank you, Nuria. So this evening, I want to welcome you once again to our dual immersion parent meeting. And we have a number of guest presenters along with myself, Peter Knapik. We have Linda Young here, who was our Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services. We have Oscar Macias, who's our Director of Secondary Education and DEI. Our principal from McKinley School, Mrs. Costella. Our principal from Disney Elementary School, Ms. Harris. Our principal from Huerta Middle School, Ms. Hatch. Our assistant principal from Burroughs High School, Ms. Caseo. And of course, we have our infamous Miss Goldenberg, who will also work with us this evening too. So once again, thank you for this evening.
And I'm about to tell you that Nuria had a hard time keeping up with the translation.
Oh, so see, Nuria will go ahead and indicate to us to slow down by putting like her little hand out there and saying, hey, dude, slow down a little bit. So thank you very much, Nuria, for doing that. I was testing you.
I think she
can use the chat feature to go ahead and ask questions, but we're going to ask you to hold off on the questions until we go through the presentation because we may be answering the questions along with the presentation. And before I get started on this evening's agenda, I just want to go ahead and share with everybody right up front that we're planning on meetings the last Tuesday of February, and we'll send this out in an email, the last Tuesday of March, and then the first Tuesday of May. We would have done the last Tuesday of April, but that's Passover, and we want to go ahead and respect and honor our friends that celebrate Passover. On slide 2, and Jennifer, if you could show the slides. This evening, from slide 2, we're going to go ahead and talk about performance data and what the data is indicating. We'll talk about matriculation to middle school and high school, just to give you a little snapshot, and we'll have more detail in February and in March. We'll talk a little bit about the dual immersion master plan. And then this evening, I'll share a little bit about summer school and some enrichment opportunities. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Goldenberg.
I think it was actually to Miss Harris or Costello. I can't remember who's going first.
We're going to turn it over then on slide
Yeah,
4.
there you go.
Yeah,
That's
we
my
can go over
slide.
to that.
I'm like, I don't see my slide. Hi, everyone. So we're gonna talk a little bit about performance data. And so this slide is our student STAR Spanish reading comprehension scores. We use Renaissance Learning Program, accelerated readers, what they use in class to take quizzes and for progress that the teachers use. And STAR is the component that gives us the students reading levels. So these are the Spanish scores. Each color is a different cohort of students. And so the gray color is our current second graders. So the first strand are their scores at this time of last year. And the second set of bars are their scores this year. And so those are the second graders. And so they did have a little bit of a dip in the meets or exceeds, but you can see the approaching is right around the same spot. The orange colored bars are our current third graders. So the first set are their scores last year at this time, and the last set are their scores this year. You can see there's been some growth. The next group is the blue bars, and they are our current fourth graders. So their scores last year at this time. And then the second set of bars are their scores this year. And then the last set are our current fifth graders. Yes, you can see at the bottom, thank you. The first set of bars are their scores at this time last year. And then the second set of bars are their scores this year. So our kids are definitely making progress. We're seeing improvements. And it's the same cohort. And so that's good for us to take into consideration also that we're comparing data for the same group of students. And this is across the board in both programs together.
And we see very similar trends in English, same color coding on these slides. That last graph is where you're going to see at or above. And we see the same trends from first to second grade, kind of a similar holding pattern. But the kids in the STAR English grew in third, fourth, and fifth grade. So it's nice to see very similar performance in both the English and Spanish assessments. And then this is another assessment that we give that many of you may be familiar with. It's called iReady, and it's a diagnostic that we give a few times per year to the students in both reading and math. It determines where students are for grade level equivalency, and then after they take the diagnostic each time, they have lessons that they do in the classroom to help them depending on where they are. So what you see on this graphic is basically that our dual immersion students did quite well. You want to look at the green and the blue for each cohort of students in kinder through fifth grade, and you'll see that the vast majority of our students were either approaching near grade level or above grade level.
All right. Excuse me. And now for our middle school data. If you look, this is showing how students are performing in their Spanish language arts class in middle school. DI Spanish is our sixth graders. Spanish for Spanish speakers 1 is our seventh graders, and Spanish for Spanish speakers 2 is our eighth graders. And those two classes, Spanish for Spanish speakers 1 and 2, are both high school level classes that our middle school students are completing. And so this is just the percentage of students with A's and B's in those classes. And then this is our data for our English language arts classes. So you can see that English 6, 7, and 8, and it's just showing you the differences, the comparison between our students who are in dual immersion and our students who are not in dual immersion. And so as you can see, for the most part, our students in dual immersion are exceeding expectations as compared to our students who are not in dual immersion. And then the last class that we offer that is part of the dual immersion program is our social studies class that's offered in Spanish. And so just as in the elementary version, each color is a different cohort. And so you can see how they are doing compared to, so if they're only taking social studies, if they're only taking the social studies Spanish class, the second column is if they're in both Spanish and social studies. And the third column is if they are in English or not in dual immersion. So it's just showing you the percentages across the board for social studies in that respect as well. And I think, yeah.
Hi, this is Tori Caseo. I'm going to talk a little bit about the high school data. So we pulled, I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought Jen was going to say something. Sorry. So we pulled the data of students with A's and B's just because we thought that would be the best to look at, like, for students dual immersion versus not dual immersion. So you can see that 88% of the ninth graders who are enrolled and have been enrolled in the dual immersion program had A's or B's in their Spanish class for semester. Now, so the Spanish class that they might be in is either Spanish 3, AP Spanish, or Spanish for Spanish speakers 2. So if they were enrolled in one of those classes, 88% of them are earning an A or a B in that class, compared to 63% of the ninth graders who are taking a Spanish class, typically Spanish 1, but it could be Spanish 2. Those students are receiving A's and B's 63% of the time.
Yes, pepperoni and sausage.
Okay, I muted that, yes. Okay, so, and then if you look even further, 100% of the students who are in 10th grade have an A or a B in their Spanish class, which again could be a high level class, either AP or Spanish 3 or something like that. But every 10th grader that was in dual immersion or is enrolled in the dual immersion is tagged as dual immersion has an A or a B, compared to 68% of students who are not in DI who have an A or a B in those classes. So you could see that students who are in DI are doing really well in their Spanish classes.
So now we'll talk about the switch from elementary to middle and middle to high school. And Nuria, I'm sorry, I accidentally muted you when I tried to mute the other person, but I see that you unmuted, so.
All right. So when you get to middle school, you typically have 6 classes. And those are English, social studies, science, math, PE, and an elective. If you're in the dual immersion program, then your social studies class is taught completely in Spanish, and your elective is also Spanish to keep up with the progression of Spanish that you've been going through the whole time you've been in the program. There should be. So there are multiple options with this. Jennifer, can you go to the next slide?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. So you can take both the social studies in Spanish class as well as the Spanish class as your elective, or you can opt to take one of those and then the other in English. So for example, if you opt to continue in the social studies class in Spanish for an elective, you can take the wheel, you can take band, or you can take choir. So you can still remain in the dual immersion program without taking Spanish as a class. You can also flip that. So you can keep Spanish as your elective and take social studies in English. So those are the two big options.
So Robin, am I reading this correctly? That if I'm a 6th grader, a 7th grader, or an 8th grader, if I look at the first row where it has the ands, I could pick that I'm going to go ahead and take as an example in 6th grade, dual immersion Spanish as an elective, and I would pick social studies, 6th grade, dual immersion.
That's correct. So you could do both, or you could decide my child wants to take an elective that isn't Spanish. So we're going to keep them in the social studies DI class and have them take the elective that they're interested in.
And then for option 2, can you just describe a little bit more about 6th grade where it has Spanish immersion and then social studies 6DI and what that means, what the or means?
Yes. So the dual immersion Spanish class is a higher level of Spanish than just Spanish 1 or what our other kids would, what a high school student would take when they're entering high school and taking Spanish for the first time, because these kids have been learning Spanish their whole career, educational career. And so that's their elective, and it prepares them a little bit better for their high school level Spanish for Spanish speakers class that they'll take in 7th grade. The social studies 6 class is the same exact content that every single other 6th grader takes, except it's presented in Spanish, and they complete their work in Spanish.
And I know you mentioned the wheel, and I'm guessing that on this next slide, you're going to share a little bit about the wheel.
Yes. So if you decide that you or your child wants to take one of our electives instead of the DI Spanish classes that are offered, these are what we offer in 6th grade. We offer the wheel, which is 10 weeks, 4 different times of 4 different classes. So you get to experience 4 different options. Traditionally, it's computers, music, arts, and culinary arts. This year, we also offered like a musical theater class, and we offered a Spanish class, but any kids in dual immersion would not have been put in that part of the wheel. The biggest caveat to the wheel is you don't really get to choose which 4 classes you're in. You're placed in a wheel and you just go in order to the 4 classes with the class you're with. The other options are beginning band, which you do not have to know how to play any instrument. You learn in that class, and it's a great class to set you up for playing instruments as a lifelong activity. Our current band director started learning to play instruments in beginning band in middle school, and now he's teaching other kids how to play. So it's a great opportunity for kids. The other option is beginning choir. So if your kid loves to sing and dance, this is a great place for them as well. Designated ELD is our elective option for students who are English learners. And then, as I spoke about earlier, we have our dual immersion Spanish class. Sometime in the next couple weeks, I want to go back really quick. Sometime in the next couple weeks, we will be sending out for incoming 5th graders our elective choice form. There's going to be one for students in dual immersion and one for students who are not in dual immersion. So there'll be an email coming out that has both links. And if you're in dual immersion, we want you to fill out that one. And so a big part of that will be asking you if you're wanting to take both the Spanish and the social studies. And if not, which one are you saying you don't want to take and what elective do you want to take. On there, it's also gathering information about a possible 0 period. We are hoping to have enough interest to offer a 0 period elective for both of our ELD students and our dual immersion students. Because they take Spanish dual immersion, they don't get the opportunity to get involved in as many of our electives. And that's a big choice for families. And so we want to provide this opportunity 0 period as long as there's interest. And so that's one of the things we're gauging. If you were to take this 0 period class, your child would be required to take 7 classes. They don't get to end their day early. And so they would start at 7 and go all the way through 3. And that's pretty early for kids. So that's a commitment that you have to stick to for the rest of the year. So that's what that survey that's coming out will be asking.
And Jennifer, can you go back a couple of slides where it talks about 0 period? That way people can see it on the screen, what Ms. Hatch is talking about, that the typical schedule is a 6 period day, but Huerta is working on a 7th period, which would start at what, 7 o'clock?
7 a.m., yes.
And go to like 7:55 or something like that?
Yeah, that 0 period is 7 to 7:55. They get 5 minutes passing period to their next class, which starts at 8.
And then you're going to work on the details of what might be offered from that 0 period with your staff.
Yes, both based on interest and which staff are willing to start at 7.
And you've already begun some visitations from elementary schools, I think.
Yeah, so McKinley and Disney both visited, their 5th graders both visited last week. And we also had our 5th grade parent or family information night later that night.
Beautiful.
Can I just jump in and add a little something? So for those who don't know me, hi, I'm Dr. Linda Young, the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, just started in August. I come from the majority of my career prior to, and I was in Glendale Unified. I was an elementary principal where I established a dual language immersion program, Spanish, English, 90-10 at John Muir Elementary School in Glendale. So I'm a huge fan of dual language immersion, huge fan. With that said, I was also a high school principal for 8 years at Crescenta Valley High School, where we received students from 4 different dual immersion programs. And so what I want to say at this point, I just wanted to kind of preface with that. I really, as parents working with your kids now transitioning from elementary to middle school, and we're going to be talking about the transition from middle to high school. Something in my experience that is extremely typical and becomes a real challenge, and it can be a point of contention that's really unnecessary between the schools and families, is that students sometimes begin to want something different than what parents want in terms of electives. And so I just really encourage a lot of exploration of that and that dinner table conversation about what your child's interests are. And so what electives they are wanting to take. And just keeping in mind that during the secondary years, during the teen period, developmentally, it's really important for students to be able to explore who they are and what their talents and interests are. So I wanted to take a minute and put that out there and encourage those dinner table conversations.
Dr. Young, your experience is really, really helpful because you see it all from elementary through middle and high school, and you have a tremendous amount of experience. So that'll help to improve our program as we move forward. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. You read my mind.
Ms. Hatch, did you want me to say something about this, or did you want to, or Tori, Ms. Cuseo?
What would you?
Oh, I can just say it. It's fine. Oh, you want to say it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so for high school, usually students that are, coming from 8th grade.
Did you guys get yours to go? Yeah.
Sorry, muted again. Are going into either the AP Spanish Lang class, and then after that, they have the option of AP Spanish Lit. We have that offered now too, or Spanish 3 / Spanish Speakers 2, depending on their level. So when they come to boroughs right now, like the main offerings that we have are language forward classes, like where we don't, that's like we have AP Spanish Lit, which can come after those Spanish Speakers 3 or Spanish 3 or Spanish Speakers 2 or AP Spanish Language. But currently, in terms of like a history or a content course taught in Spanish, we don't have those on the schedule yet. But for students in high school, we're trying to develop more language classes for the GI students to take. And I know different ideas have come up, but right now, Spanish 3, Speakers 2, then AP Spanish Lang, depending on the level. And then after that, AP Spanish Literature is also an option.
Right, and I think that's on the next slide. Let's see. Oh, this is more you, Tori. Go for it.
Okay, so a student who is coming into 9th grade at John Burroughs High School will typically have 6 classes. Occasionally, students might have 7 classes if they are interested or able to take a 0-period class. In the past, students have also taken classes for initial credit over the summer through different online programs, just to make room for those things that they really would like to make room for in their schedule. So, but there are students who do have quite packed schedules with things that they're interested in taking. And usually one way to do that is to do 0-period, especially to make room for language if health is, because the health is on a 9th grader schedule. So students are usually trying to make room in order to put a language on their schedule during the 9th grade. Especially if they're also interested in athletics, which take place during period 6 or period 7. So knowing that that's one period that's taken for that physical education, and then 5 other ones, including English and health and math and science, and then some type of elective class. So the chat was covering the bottom of the slide, but the language class that they could take would serve as that elective spot. But if they wanted to either not have a 0-period and just go for a 6-period day, or take a 0-period and have more things on their schedule, that would depend on what the decision would be for initial credit options during the summer. And we'll have a better idea of what initial credit options we will be communicating out soon. But it's usually health.
And we go back to the last slide. I have a couple of questions just for clarification. Ms. Caseo, what time does 0-period start at the high school?
Great question. 0-period starts at 7:30. So school in high school is from 8:30 to 3:30, the typical school day, but 0-period is at 7:30. So as opposed to 8 to 3, that change came to us last year. So 7:30 is when 0-period starts and goes every morning from 7:30 to 8:21. And athletic periods are either 6th or 7th period, which means either the students are meeting right during 6th period, or they're checking in at 6th period and coming back onto campus later that day. Just to give you an idea of that, most sports meet during what's called 7 periods, meaning that their schedule is not right at 2:30 to 3:30 every day, but they might have different practice hours, a different meeting schedule. So keeping that in mind, if your student is interested in athletics, that there's some flexibility with what times those classes meet.
And you may have said this and I may have missed it, but is the 0-period class a semester-long class? Is it a year-long, or does it depend upon the class?
Zero period classes are year-long classes. All of our ninth
We don't
grade
talk about body.
classes,
You especially.
sorry, muted. All of our ninth grade classes at this point are year-long classes. We don't necessarily have many semester-long classes, but none right now for ninth graders.
Great, thank you.
This is more of the pathways that Tori was speaking about earlier.
Right, yeah, so the options for ninth grade, you can see as I was talking about Spanish 3 or Spanish for Spanish speakers 2, depending on the level. And our Spanish department plays a role also in assessing where students best test to be. I think that's right. Sorry, Jen, if that's not right. And then they also have the option of AP Spanish language, but after AP Spanish language in 10th grade, you could continue to AP Spanish literature, which has been added this year. And then past that, we have a great dual enrollment partnerships with a lot of the community colleges that are around here. And sometimes we're able to, our students are able to sign up for those courses that take place after school. And
just to clarify on the community college coursework, and maybe Dr. Young wants to chime in on that. I think that we're still working out the details, but you're closer to it than I am, so.
Yes, we continue to work with Valley College. They're really a wonderful partner. If our parents here aren't familiar with the campus, it's just right down Burbank Avenue. It's actually much closer than, and it's our official partner, closer than Glendale Community College. They're really great partners. We have ongoing dialogue and a discussion about what might be an appropriate course for our students to take at Valley College after they finish AP Spanish language and AP Spanish literature. So, continuing the college level work, there's various options that we're discussing. And honestly, I think a third language is a great way to go, quite honestly. So that's something to consider as well in terms of being global citizens, having highly marketable skills. That third language is such a great way to go. So as decisions are made with Valley College, that will be shared.
There is a question in the chat about how many years of foreign language are needed in high school.
For high school graduation, world languages are not required. For college admission, so there's kind of two checklists that we want you looking at as parents and students in high school. One of them are the graduation requirements. There's accruing 230 units in the particular areas. And then there's the A to G UC college admissions requirements, and it's A to G because it's a list of A, B, C, D, E, F, G in different areas. And English, math, there are areas on both lists that speak to each other, but world languages is one area that's not required for high school graduation, that is required for admission to the UC system and many private schools as well. 2 years is required, 3 is recommended, meaning 3 years in the DI. Those who participate in the dual immersion pathway are really advantaged in that regard in the college admission process, because they can very easily validate 3 years of world language experience their 9th grade year in the 3rd year Spanish, or AP language validates on their transcript 4 years, and so on. AP Spanish Lit would validate 5 years. So that's kind of how that works.
Thank you, Dr. Young. You know what's really nice about this presentation and our presenters too is that Ms. Hatch and Dr. Macias have both middle school and high school experience, as well as Dr. Young. So it really complements and really puts the focus on where it needs to be with our dual immersion program. as we work with middle school and high school pathways. So kudos to them and looking forward to some great work that they're going to be doing.
Okay, so here's my slide on the dual immersion master plan. We brought it to the school board. Was it last week or the week before? I can't even remember. And it was a really good discussion, lots of questions. We added goals with metrics for English and Spanish proficiency to the front of the master plan, and then what we do to get to those goals. And it'll go to the board for approval in March. There was a question about, is there a budgetary constraint on point such that it would be helpful for parents to communicate its importance, blah, blah, blah. We actually have a school board member on the call tonight. The school board knows how important this is, but feel free to, do whatever I'm not saying you can't communicate or just say they know already. I'm sorry. Let's see.
So one of the nice things is that dual immersion is funded not only through LCAP, but through the general fund. And so the funding is pretty much stable and secure and those kind of things. So funding is not really an issue. And I know Miss Ponser Kamkar, one of our board members, who's also a dual immersion parent, is here on the presentation tonight. I know she's responding to some questions in the chat too. So just want to say a shout out to Miss Ponser Kamkar and welcome her. There she is, just responded.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. I had to hop into another room. But yeah, always feel free to email me. We did look at the DI master plan 2 weeks on the 18th. And so, I think the team has done a really good job about trying to figure out what this looks like in current space. I think thinking about like what comes next. I saw there was a question in the chat, I think is the next kind of logical extension of that. But there's many challenges to how there could be more of an extension of it. That's all
I was trying to find it in the chat. There was a question about certificate, if they participate, and that's actually in the master plan. And because yes, the California has outlined like pathways to biliteracy. And so everyone in 5th grade who has participated in the DI program gets a certificate. In 8th grade, they have to show proficiency in English and in Spanish, oral language and written language, and then they can get a certificate for that. If they participate, or excuse me, if they were in the DI program for at least a year, they're eligible to take those assessments for that award. And then students who participate in the program also get a participation award. And then the seal of biliteracy. The other certificates awards that we offer are decided, like it's criteria that the state says, look at, decide your criteria within these parameters. The seal of biliteracy is really different and straightforward, and they just changed the requirements this year. It has to do with taking either 4 years of a foreign language and having a certain GPA, or passing the AP test for that language. So, and then there's also showing proficiency in English. So any student in California can get the seal of biliteracy, the actual seal for their diploma. It's not just limited to dual immersion participants. So, and that's been around, the seal of biliteracy has been around for years and years. Okay, I think that's about it. And now it's off to you, Dr. Kanapik.
So I just wanted to give you a helicopter snapshot view of what the plans are for summer program. So about a month ago, we started our dual immersion summer program planning. And so we'll have at the elementary level 2 or 3 classes. We'll probably have something offered for the middle school, and we'll be sending out an interest form to families to go ahead and gather their suggestions for the program. At the elementary level, we've made it theme-based, weekly themes, and families have self-selected to attend certain weeks or the entire program. So we're talking about June 3rd, Monday, June 3rd through Wednesday, July 3rd, and it's a 20-day program. So just off the top of my head, and I'm going to put this on the interest form. It's like 5 days of summer program the first week, and it's once again theme-based, and it could be like the Olympics. Week 2 is going to be 5 days, and let's just say that could be food. And then week 3 is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm going off the top of my head. Wednesday is Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday, but it's 4 days that week, and then 4 days the following week, and then the 3 days of 4th of July week. So once again, it'll be 20 days. Right now, we are in the process of starting. We did the flyers for teachers and the applications for teachers and para educators. And so those will be going out at the beginning of February from HR. And so we, first of all, give our staff within Burbank an opportunity to apply, and then we recruit also outside of the district too. So we'll be hiring staff once again, depending upon the enrollment. And it could be, we have 3 classes of about 15 to 20 students each in elementary. And in the mornings, it's usually academics. Afternoon for elementary, it's usually childcare. And it's dual immersion, so it would be Spanish based, both childcare and our morning program too. And then we'll have some kind of an offering for middle school yet, and we're going to base that on the interest forms as well as the elementary. We also will be having like field trips or people coming into the school. And right now we have plans that will be offered over at Disney Elementary School. So once again, we'll start that process, and we'll have out the student applications too. Normally, it's a fee-based program, and because we have a pretty healthy balance in our donations, our pot of donations, and I don't have an exact figure right this minute, so I'll put that on the interest form so you'll see, because it is parent money, it's parent donation money, and that money would pay for like the salaries of the teachers, the salaries of the paraeducators. It would pay for field trips. It would pay for all of the materials for the program. It would pay for people coming into the school and providing a learning opportunity, like maybe it's ballet folklorica or something like that for the students. So once again, we'll provide a full menu so that parents can see what's going to be offered. And then also, like I said, the interest based on the interest form. And then you'll have an update at the end of February about what that looks like. But right now, it looks like we have plenty of money in the bank. I don't anticipate. I know a couple of years ago when we talked about summer dual immersion, the families went ahead and decided that they still felt as though to keep the balance healthy, to go ahead and have a small contribution, and we can cross that bridge at the end of February too. But once again, I'll be totally transparent because it's not my money, it's parent money, and it's there to spend, and so why not? But I know too, it just from a certain point of view and advice, we may not want to spend down that account because that money is used for summer program and for enrichment. We could go ahead and provide monies to the schools during the school year if we had a nice healthy balance, so that if schools wanted to go ahead and take some kind of a field trip or have some kind of an opportunity or an outside organization came into the schools, we could do that too, or have some kind of a special program. So we'll talk further about that at the end of February. Okie dokie.
Okay, and I believe that brings us to the end of the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. Maybe we can take a look at a few questions in the chat.
One question is about the AP exam. Is it oral or written?
It's both. There's an oral component. And then, yes, Linda, if there's any, or it's funny because Robin, Miss Hatcher answering a lot of questions like, oh yeah, you just came from Burbank High. So you secondary people like have straddled a lot of worlds. Thank you so much. But Linda Young, can you address the whole weighting the GPA in ninth grade?
Sure. So once you're high schooler, and I'm sure you recall from your years, but I have an awareness that we may have some parents who went through education in different countries and systems in this space. And there is what's called a grade point average that becomes the reality that feels very important once you enter ninth grade and begin looking forward to college and career and college admissions. What a grade point average means is that there are a certain number of points that you accrue in your high school experience with each grade that you collect on your transcript. An A is typically worth 4 points, a B 3 points, a C 2 points, a D 1 point, an F no points. When you're taking a college level course or an advanced placement course, because that is a college level course by definition, you're graded on a 5-point scale, meaning an A is worth 5 points, not 4. A B is worth 4 points, not 3, and so on. And so, for instance, a class taken with Valley College, like we were talking about, that would also be graded on a 5-point scale, just as advanced placement courses are graded on a 5-point scale. And there were quite a few questions in the chat. There were a lot of questions, so I was kind of trying to see what was there and respond. But there were quite a few questions related to validating the number of years of language. And it's more important the level that you're taking, validating the amount of knowledge than it is. And so if there's a need for us to talk to counselors and clarify with UC and CSU recent guidance, I haven't heard that has changed. Again, as a high school principal for 8 years, my knowledge of that was always that if a student took 3rd year Spanish as a 9th grader, they fulfilled the UC requirement that first year. Because 3rd year Spanish validates 3 years worth of knowledge of Spanish. So there's not an imperative to take Spanish again as a sophomore, although I'm sure many in this space would want that to be what happens.
Linda, there's a follow-up question to your GPA question or answer. My understanding is that certain schools, and I think they mean colleges, may not count the impact of the 5.0 at 9th grade. So basically it's advantageous to shift AP to 10th grade. Is there any truth to that?
That can be true. It depends on, so the challenge moving forward is the more clear you are, and these are, again, important dinner table conversations because teenagers, I've got a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old of my own at home. They begin to develop their own ideas about where they want to take their life and go to college or career. So those conversations are really important, and increasingly so as you begin to zero in on which colleges you want to apply to, because they will have different requirements and expectations. Some of them will give you full credit for advanced placement test scores of a 3 or above in various content areas. And so it's possible, should your student choose to participate in advanced placement coursework, to enter college as a sophomore and not a freshman. But certain other universities or colleges choose not to give credit, but they might look at those scores for placement of the appropriate first course. So every college or university can, and different systems, CSU is a different system than the UC system. Each private school can do what they want to do. They can require different things and take different approaches to honoring or not the 5-point scale, giving credit or not for advanced placement tests. And our community college system is also a really great way to go to potentially get 2 years of free credit. And so that's, I know Burbank and Burroughs High School have dates and times set in the month of February with Valley College staff coming out to talk about admissions and financial aid and lots of really great things. So make sure you're checking bulletins and information coming to you from the schools in the years ahead about all these opportunities.
There is a good question in the chat, Linda, about what language is offered for dual enrollment at GCC and LAVC.
So we're just working out our articulated agreements and for the year ahead. Typically, our students who want to take Armenian go to GCC. It's possible that we may be able to work out an articulated agreement for ASL. We're working that out, but there are at Valley College similarly, there are opportunities. So information will be coming out in the near future about what both of those colleges are agreeing to provide to us. And what I mean by that is all of us can easily Google and look at what classes are offered at Valley College or what classes are offered at GCC. And I invite you to do that if that's this is an area of interest for you. There are certain sections where we think we have critical mass that they will pretty much dedicate a section to us and reserve seats for our students. And so those are some of the partnerships and agreements that we're still working on for next year.
Thank you. I was looking back at other questions too, like, is there a plan to add a core class in history? History taught in Spanish at the high school level. I've talked to the Spanish teachers. It's a matter of credentialing. So the conversation, it happens. It's just it's just in planning stages. And I think a lot of these other questions were answered.
So what we're going to do is, once again, to remind everybody, we recorded this meeting, so we'll post the recording on the Dual Immersion website. We'll take the slides, we'll post them on the Dual Immersion website, and then we'll take the chat and develop them into FAQs, and then we'll post them on the website, because there might be some more clarification that we need to make based on the question, because we have given a short answer. So we'll take a look at those, and once again, we'll post all this on the Dual Immersion website too. So once again, I want to thank all of our presenters who are here this evening and shared a wealth of knowledge. I want to thank our translator, Nuria Lundberg, who's always here for us. Greatly appreciate you, Nuria. You're wonderful. Thank you to our parents too. And please know that we are in communication with many of you, and sometimes our messages and our emails are a little bit delayed because we work collaboratively with each other. So if you email me, I'm talking to HR, I'm talking to Dr. Young, I'm talking to Dr. Macias, I'm talking to Ms. Hatch, I'm talking to Ms. Harris, I'm talking to Ms. Costella, I'm talking to Jennifer Goldenberg too. Sometimes I have to talk to fiscal services too. So it's not just a matter of me or any of us to go ahead and just responding off the top of our head, because we want to get it right. And so we want to go ahead and collaborate with each other. And also because all of us need to know, because all of us, it's a shared decision-making process. Sometimes it seems like we're delayed and slow on the uptake and responding and those kind of things, but there's a reason for it, because we work so collaboratively with each other. So once again, thank you all for being here. Thank you to our parent community. Thank you for supporting. And then I didn't forget about the summer school interest form that will go out. And then we'll be meeting on, what is that, Tuesday, February 27th at 6 o'clock. We'll send out another Zoom link, and we'll be talking more about middle school scheduling and high school scheduling. We'll talk about summer program. Those are probably the primary conversation pieces for that meeting in February. We're going to be meeting the last Tuesday of March and then the first Tuesday of May. Okay. So thank you all very, very much. Good to see you all. Stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much.